So you want to learn the Drush build order, one of the most aggressive openings in competitive Age of Empires 2 multiplayer, where you harass your opponent even before Feudal Age. If you want to master that, then this video is for you, because I won't only show you the basic build order, but also the options you have after your first couple of militia are in the field, what the strengths and weaknesses are, and which civilizations are particularly good at it. And you already know it, we'll do it in less than 10 minutes. Let's go! As always, we're picking a civilization without any bonuses affecting this build. Here it's the Byzantines on Arabia. If you've watched any of my other builds, you already know that I like builds that allow for 1 or 2 minor imperfections and still work as intended. You will see a couple in this demonstration, and that's because in a real ranked game there will almost always be slight hiccups, and it means you can definitely do this build order even at a lower elo. Without further ado, let's fire up the build order chart and get going. The first villages at the beginning of Dark Age look identical to my fast feudal build, because as you know I like to keep things simple, and a repertoire of build orders is no good if you can't remember them or switch between them flexibly when the game requires it. So we start with 2 houses here and then add up to 6 villages on sheep under the TC as per usual. Notice something right away here on the topic of scouting. On some maps, I like to leave the inner exploration circle to my spare sheep, while the scout goes out in a straight line before starting to circle. And the reason for that is, if you look at where the herd of deer and the 4 additional sheep usually spawn, it's not within those first few tiles outside your starting vision, it's a little further. So by sending your scout out a bit further and letting your sheep cover the inner circle, you have a good chance of finding further sheep quickly with your scout right away, so you can send them around. Or, like in this case, you run into your herdables and can push a deer or a zebra early. I think both are great for your further scouting, and remember that hunt, as opposed to sheep, is more efficient in food generation, which is especially important at the beginning. Back to the build order, the next 3 villages will go on your wood line. 2 remarks here. Number 1, you can see the shift click on the tree that is actually behind the lumber camp as opposed to diagonally next to it. And this is one of those tiny details to improve your efficiency, because this way your vill is virtually glued to the lumber camp and there will be next to 0 latency between having gathered the 10 wood and dropping it off at the lumber camp. And remark number 2 here, the reason we put 3 on wood as opposed to 2, like in our fast feudal and fast castle build orders, is that we will need to afford a barracks and the 3rd house a little earlier than usual. Since we want to get the militia out early, we need to do that early as well. So we need 3 on wood for the time being. Like any build order, we want it to be sustainable, so the goals are not just to get 2 militia out early in the game at whatever the cost, but to have a functioning economy behind it, and we want to click up with 20 villages into feudal age. After that, your goals might actually vary, but we'll get back to that in a minute. In the meantime, we continue with luring the boar, or the rhino in this case, and we push in further deer, goats, whatever we need. I personally like to build the 3rd house with a villager bringing in the forward boar, because this way you reduce unnecessary walking, and your house becomes part of your house wall already. In terms of numbers, we only add on hunt until we have reached about 14 population, because the next villager is already going to go and build the barracks. Other build orders here will suggest to build the barracks a bit later, and the trade-off is that you can click up to feudal age a touch earlier. But in this case, my absolute priority is to get the militia on the field earlier and then take it from there. By the way, don't be tempted to bring in all the deer. 1 to 2 is absolutely fine, because your scout also needs to bring in the remaining sheep and has to go and scout the map. As always, keep the rotting under the TC to a minimum, as having fewer carcasses will avoid you wasting those precious hunt and sheep resources at the beginning. And so next up is villager number 14, and you can see on the wood count we do have to quickly force drop to get the required 175 wood here. I recommend you put that on a hotkey, by the way, and it should literally just about fit. And keep in mind, we're doing this build order here in the demonstration with a generic civilization, and as you'll see later when we discuss civilizations, there are others that have bonuses that will make this a bit easier and more comfortable. All other vills now, out of the TC, will continue to go on hunt until you reach 20 villager population. The villager building the barracks then immediately places a house. You'll see there is a couple of seconds of being housed in this sometimes. Not a big deal though in the grand scheme of things, we still achieve our goals. After that, the villager that built the barracks and the house goes back on food. And obviously as soon as the barracks is up, queue up 2 militia. The reason we only do 2 here, by the way, is that anything more would slow down our uptime way too much, and the benefit of having the 3rd militia in most strategies that follow this is pretty minimal. Importantly, take 1 villager from wood to food as well, since the next goal is to get to feudal age. You can do this already after you've placed the barracks foundation, by the way. Here, in this case in the demonstration, we're doing it a bit too late, to be honest. Importantly, you already see it, our scout has already scouted the enemy's base, so that the militia will know where to go. You don't want them wandering around the map and waste precious seconds on finding your opponent and finding that valuable damage. In particular, you want to target your opponent's berries and woodline, so make sure you scout those. Now, we're going to pause here real quick because there's a decision to make on what happens after your Drush. Broadly speaking, I think you have 3 options. The first one is the one that we'll do here, which is to transition it into a fast feudal with scouts. I personally like this option because you continue to disrupt your opponent's build at the possibly maximum speed that the game allows for, and you're already familiar with the idea of the strategy if you've played a fast feudal before. Option number 2 is to continue with a fast castle in the hopes that your Drush has done enough damage to give you the breathing space to go all the way to castle age before you add further pressure. For that option, as always, you would probably just add another 2 to 4 wills, 2 of which would go on gold and the others on food or wood as needed. Option number 3 is to still go for a fast feudal, but with the intention to upgrade your militia to men-at-arms and then combine them with something like a tower rush. And option number 4, of course, is to not bother with any of this and just keep watching my YouTube videos and catch me live on Twitch. Meanwhile, we continue with option 1, the transition into scouts, and that simply means add more vills on food until you hit about 20 and in the meantime send your militia forward. If for whatever reason you've had one too many imperfections, feel free to throw in loom before you click up. It's likely that your opponent will use their scout to defend at home, but you never know, they might come forward and try and snipe vills and it might have been the right decision. That is up to you. In this case I'm greedy and I do a quick force drop on food. Remember we sent the 3rd lumberjack back to food a little late, so that explains the tiny delay here. And now, let me quickly pause again, because there is a lot happening at the same time when you do a Drush. Number 1 is the economy. As soon as you've clicked up at home, you have to rebalance to address the lack of wood and your hunt running out soon. We do that by, number 1, sending 6 more villagers to the wood line, number 2, sending 6 villagers to build a mill and then go on berries, and the rest finishes the hunt and then goes on to stragglers and farms when possible. Also in the second half of being up, send a villager to build a house as part of your building wall, and drop the stable as soon as you hit feudal age, so make sure you have enough wood for that before you build too many farms right away. Number 2 here, and we see it again live on screen, is the attack on the opponent. The goal with your 2 militia is actually not to kill any villagers necessarily, but to provoke idle time. And that means bothering the villagers and retreating, as you can see here, as soon as they attack, and then immediately re-engaging. If you think you can get the snipe, it's a good idea to use your scout to block the villagers' path to safety, so to the town center. And you always want to try and keep all 3 units alive if possible, especially the scout, since we'll use it later in our scout rush as well. Back in our base we can see the villager building a house now, and it will drop a stable in the second we hit feudal age. Other than that, I already mentioned it, only go full on farms when you have the wood for the stable, and send food vills on stragglers in the meantime. First thing you already want to queue up in the TC is loom, and then a bunch of vills. That's of course if you haven't done loom in Dark Age already. From here on out, it's pretty standard stuff. You build farms whenever you can, you pump out scouts, and you wall your base. Let's talk about the weaknesses of the whole thing. An attentive opponent might get away with quick walling, or clever villager micro. That means you don't force all the idle time you were hoping for. Number 2 is, of course, your opponent might play a fast feudal without any militia involved, so that means their uptime will be slightly faster than you. Apart from that though, I would argue the risks are fairly low with this strategy. If you can think of any others, please pop them in the comments down below. I'm always curious to hear what you guys think as well. Let's quickly chat about civilizations here as well. It depends a bit on your follow-on options, whether it's scouts, a fast castle, or men-at-arms and towers. So obviously you should look out for civilization bonus that affect your follow-on options as well. A few examples here are, for example, the Bulgarians, where you get free militia line upgrades. That is pretty sick if your initial 2 militia actually survive into feudal age. Another option here would be Goths, another great infantry civilization, where infantry costs 20% less, you get loom instantly, still costs though, and you get further infantry bonuses in feudal age, and your barracks works 20% faster, so this is a great option here. Also look for civilizations that have an eco bonus that is effective in Dark Age already. That means a couple of classic Drush civilizations are the Britons, where they gather food from sheep 25% faster, making the uptime much easier, or the Japanese, where their mill and lumber camp cost 50% less wood, and they get an attack speed bonus for infantry starting in feudal age. And meanwhile, you can see on screen here, we've completed our fast feudal option with plenty of scouts in the field, and even our starting militia are still harassing the opponent until they resign and deinstall the game. And that's it already, the Dark Age rush or Drush in less than 10 minutes. As always, I hope you found this video useful, and I'm very curious to hear which civilizations you like to pick for that strategy, and how you like to tailor it so it fits your playstyle. Until then, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you for the next one. Ciao!